Right. Good afternoon. I must say, two things occurred to me when I walked on stage here. One is that all of us are looking at the slide that you're seeing and realizing that maybe it's time to upgrade our bio shots, our headshots. So we'll take that as a note for the future. And then the other is, I'm glad to see you all in the audience. It's Tuesday, day 4 of NAB for many of us. And usually the crowds kind of thin out by now because there's been too many meetings, happy hours, dinners, after parties, et cetera. So I appreciate you all being here. And I want to thank both of my friends and guests here. My name is Anil Jain. I lead the media and entertainment industry team globally at Google Cloud. And I'm joined today by my friends Mauricio Felix and Michael Serda. And why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Mauricio, do you want to start?
Yes. My name is Mauricio. I'm the head of infrastructure, telecom, security, and media solution in Globo. Globo is a media company in Brazil. We have a terrestrial broadcast transmission, programming on pay TV, and we are very strong on the digital side also. We have OTT platforms and other digital products that we are going to speak a little bit about it.
Thank you, Mauricio. Michael?
Hey, everybody. I lead product and engineering for Televisa Univision on the streaming side. For those of you that don't know what Televisa Univision is, it's a newly formed company. It used to be Televisa as one company, Univision as another. Univision is, originally was like the Spanish station you got when you were a kid in the US, And so there was a bunch of local stations across the country that aggregated radio stations as well. That became Univision, one big company. Televisa, a major force in and of itself in Mexico. So the two companies came together recently when was it? 2 months ago, I think the deal closed. And so it's a whole new company, and a big part of the company's strategy is OTT, is streaming. And so as part of that, I lead an effort around streaming. We just launched, a month ago, we launched a new AVOD offering called VIX.
Yeah, congratulations on that launch as well.
Thank you.
The reason I have both of these gentlemen on stage, you can see the title of this talk is Navigating the Paradigm Shift in Media to Direct-to-Consumer, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And it's also about transformation. So, for those of you who were here yesterday when I spoke a little bit, one of the things I emphasized is the fact that the media and entertainment industry is one of those industries that obviously we all know both as participants in the industry as well as consumers that has been changing dramatically and being disrupted by the advent of a number of new technologies and capabilities. And really, we've been seeing the fact that consumers have all the power in terms of dictating how and when they want to experience media from all of the major media companies around the globe. And so all of that is creating an environment in which transformation is essential. And when we talk about transformation, we're not talking about, can we take the content we've always produced and just enable it in a video platform and distribute it out in streaming services. It's a lot more than that. It's about changing the entire end-to-end of the business and sometimes innovating new business models, changing processes, reskilling your workforce, building and changing infrastructure, changing the way things have been done for years. And so this transformation is all-encompassing. And the reason I mention that here is both Grupo Globo and Televisa Univision are companies that in the last year have started on a massive transformation journey. At Google Cloud, we're very proud to be partners and participants in that journey. But these are very long, kind of multi-year partnerships with a vision for how do we transform the entire business and the nature of how a media and entertainment company runs in this world over the next 7 to 10 years, right? And so with that, maybe I can have each of you talk about, from your perspective, because not only are you leading aspects of these companies, but you have actually seen transformation happen over decades in the industry. I know, Michael, you just recently came to Televisa Univision from Disney Plus. So maybe we'll start with you. And if you want to kind of give the audience here a little bit of a scope of what that transformation entails as Televisa Univision is on a journey to become the world's largest Spanish language media company.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Anil. So, it's really interesting because a lot of it has to do with mindset. A lot of it has to do with culture. A lot of it, right? You used to do things a certain way, and now you're starting to do them in new ways for new reasons, for more efficient reasons, for digital scale and all kinds of things. And at least in my situation, you're talking about like, a broadcast TV station that ended up building a digital business, but now has a streaming big bet on top of it. So you're transforming those things. You have to look at years, to transform those things. But I have to jump into the mix, into the party, and get this streaming business off the ground at the same time. And that's the tricky part, is we don't have 10 years to wait, or whatever, 5 years to wait, right? We have to get up and running now. So it helps to partner with folks as you launch these things. You don't have to build every single part of the system yourself. We actually chose to, in this case, build client apps for the streaming service, the content management, the CMS that basically powers them, and then the APIs that interconnect them and make them work. And the rest of the components are systems that we partnered or are working with many companies on. But it's very interesting because the needs that you have as a digital business, as a streaming business in particular, are actually they're different needs than you have on the broadcast side. So I'll take just a very simple example, some metadata, right? On the broadcast side, they were happy with the state of metadata. It's been what it's been for years, right? And it was basically put there to put on the TV channel guide, right? To put the time, who's starring in it, the synopsis, whatever. On a streaming platform, it's magnitudes more important because that metadata is going to basically drive how well I can get somebody to find something to watch. It's like in streaming service, the whole deal is get somebody in, get them to find something to watch quickly. That time to watch, you want that to be as short as possible. So you have to have good content discovery. How do you have good content discovery? If you have good metadata, you can really do that. You can make search work really well, for example, or recommendations. But if you don't have good metadata, if it's not complete or it's incorrect or whatever, those things aren't going to do well. So this is very, very important. It's very critical. So we have to look at the needs of the business as we evolve this and do things a little bit differently. And we're doing it, basically one day at a time. But it's a big tall order. And I guess what I'll do as I wrap this up is, you have to keep focused on that long term, but you have to make decisions for the near term as well. You have to just admit and realize those must coexist.
And I know what you're speaking of, especially as you look to take the fact that there are a number of existing streaming platforms that Univision and Televisa had and actually bring them all together into one global platform, right? And you had a pretty aggressive timeline that Wade Davis articulated for everybody and told the market, and you guys met that delivery. One thing that, before I move to Mauricio, a colleague of yours told me, this is Marcos Obadia, right, on the broadcast side, is that, yes, the North Star for Televisa Univision is ViX and that massive streaming platform that is going to allow for, increasing international distribution, a unified experience, starting with AVOD, moving to other forms of monetization. But ultimately, you still need the media supply chain behind it to feed, right? And
100%.
And so, in that transformation, especially as you talked about metadata, how do decisions that you're making in terms of now and setting up for the future actually affect the team on the other side that's doing all the work on the infrastructure and the broadcasts?
Well, we have to move quickly, and the best we can do is work, and I think you all know in matrix designed organizations, you must find a way to cross-functionally operate, right? It's about the operating model and sharing values about what those outcomes really are. So it's outcome-based that drives that cross-functional nature. So it's really about keeping everybody together as part of this and not ever making any one decision, For example, we shouldn't run off and make a decision about who's going to provide us live sporting events outside of Marcos and his team, for example.
Right.
That would be bananas, right?
Right.
So they have to be a part of that. And by the way, they're responsible for running that stuff and operating it. So it's very cross-functional. And I think, a lot of times what happens in transformational opportunities is also transforming culture and mindset.
Absolutely. I'm sure we could have an entire talk just on the culture within a media organization.
Yeah.
Mauricio, you oversee all of the media infrastructure, media supply chain side. It's something we've worked on together for some time. And you've been at Globo for many, many years, seeing the evolution. As Globo, I'm happy to share that as Globo decided to move on this transformation journey, it wasn't an overnight decision, right? This was a decision that aligned with the board and the shareholders at the top, and actually was kind of mandated across the organization. Can you speak to us about the transformation journey that Globo is on, and kind of emphasize what are some of the critical factors involved in making the right decision? And it wasn't an easy decision, right? It took some time to get to a place to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
But I would love to hear your experience.
Yeah, we are in this journey since 2018. The strategy our new strategy is also going direct to consumer, and also having different ways to monetize our content, and I think I'm going to speak a little bit about that. And of course, that for that happen, as we are not an open company, we also had to see our costs to be more efficient as you can. Yeah. Like you said, in the technology side, one nice thing is that we run in the technology, we run the operations, we run the media supply chain, and we run the digital business also. So I can see from glass to glass how this transformation has happened. And for us, it's very important that we have a really horizontal transformation where we can, since the capture of the camera until delivering to the customer, the best experience to the customer. Because really, in the end of the day, now more, like you said, the customer is the one, the king, is the one that we need to provide the best service and monetize as we can. In this partnership that we are doing with Google, we are transforming a lot the media supply chain from the normal broadcasting that we have to a more digital, a more scalable, to have more capability, to drive new business, new opportunities, and also have more efficiency in costs. Yeah, change from that capex mode to an opex mode, where really we can have the concept of pay for the use. Yeah, and then of course that this will tie a lot with our digital strategy, because we have our own platform developed internally. But in our understanding, in this partnership with Google, we think that we need to own the IP of the software of the product, not the infrastructure. I think that we let the guys that know Google in this case. So we have finished with our data centers, and put everything in Google, and we kept our CDN. That for us is an investment very important, because with really the edge, the CDN, we can have the best experience, and then we can deliver different kind of business model. Give you an example of what I'm describing. We have a big show in Brazil called Big Brother. I think Big Brother is a show that happens in all of the world, but in Brazil we have more than 22 editions, and we have in the broadcast TV, we have over 50 million people seeing Big Brother at the same time. And for us to make a really Big Brother is a show that is really a multi-platform, because we have the terrestrial TV, but every fan sees a lot in the digital platform. Just to take a look, normally in the vote day, we have 3.6 million votes per minute, and with this scale, we can just scale with a partner like Google. For example, normally we have an event that is very. When we finish the event at the terrestrial TV, everybody migrates to the platform at the same time. We are talking about almost more than 2 million subscribers going directly to the global play at the same moment. For that, the scale needs to be huge. Yeah, and we are talking about video. We're talking about very high quality video. Yeah, and then touch upon on data. A strategy also to in the revenue side to have different kind of monetization, creating segmentation, dynamic ad insertion. These things, for us, the base for everything is a global ID platform. We have a platform, yeah, because as everybody knows, more and more we are losing the third-party data. So we need to, each one of us needs to create our first-party data. So we are building that. We have more than 100 million IDs, and our idea is to enrich and to increase this database, because with that we can know better our customer and deliver different programming, different advertising, and with that we really understand that we will be able to put our strategy in place that is a really direct to consumer, that we can add subscription, but we can add also advertising and really create new revenues for the company.
Yeah. So, Mauricio, thank you. That actually dovetails into this kind of next area that I really wanted to have you guys comment on, and that is, as we think about the evolution of media companies, and this actually applies to all companies going on a cloud journey. I think the pinnacle of that evolutionary process in terms of cloud adoption and transformation is becoming a truly data-driven enterprise, right? Where decisions that you make or that are made even in an automated fashion are actually powered by the combination of all sorts of first-party and third-party data, and then, of course, layered in with AI and machine learning to help identify preference and relevance and do predictive kind of things. Because in order to really get to a more hyper-personalized type of experience where there is a media experience for each and every one of you that is individualized to you, whatever that experience may be, whether it's in a virtual linear channel, right, a fast channel, or whether it is in a curated playlist on demand, or whether it's changing every moment based on other factors, right, that are relevant to the environment you're in, the platform you're watching on, the network conditions, the latest news, whatever it might be, right? And this is, or your social graph. All of these things ultimately are data signals, right? And so I think that most media leaders now have recognized that they need to embrace really putting together a very robust data platform at the heart of the company. And so, Mauricio just spoke a little bit about that, but, Michael, can you talk about how that factors into the strategy for Televisa Univision?
Yeah, it's so critical path. It's pretty much everything, right? So to provide some context, so we launched this AVOD service recently. Now we're building a SVOD tier. So in this service, at the end of the year, whenever we're done, it's going to be a free service with a premium tier on the inside of it. Yeah. So in order to do that, that's a very interesting challenge, because as an AVOD viewer and as an SVOD viewer, how do I show you those two experiences without leading you down the rat hole, right? But data's at the center of all these things, right? So we can think about these things in terms of how do we optimize for each tier, right? So in this case, there was something we cracked at Disney, and I'm sure we weren't the first to do it, but this whole idea of RFE, recency, frequency, and engagement. There's sort of a coefficient that's magical about that, whereby if you can get the right recency, frequency, and engagement coefficient on a given viewer, you're going to keep them for a certain lifetime. So a lot of this is about LTV in the end of the day, right?
Lifetime value.
Right? So lifetime value is critical. So we basically have a way to use data to figure out what does that ideal viewer look like, right? How recent were they here? It's a combination of how recent were they here, how often do they come, how frequent do they come, and what that engagement looks like. What are they watching per week, per session, per month, et cetera. when you can model that together from a data perspective and actually see from a data makeup what the ideal viewer is, then you can spend time obsessing how you get the other viewers to look like that one, right? And that's what kind of drives your product roadmap at the end of the day. When you find the cohort that's next to this cohort, how do you make that cohort look like this one? That's when you start hypothesizing, and that's when you start, again, going back to the cross-functional lineup, bringing teams together that have different perspectives throughout the organization to then actually hypothesize what to do to make that viewer look like that viewer, and ultimately driving value. So data is at the heart of it. I guess, we're landing raw data in Segment, and that's getting collected into BigQuery, and we're using Looker, so we're using all the stuff,
right? Yeah,
and getting it up and running. So yeah, it's definitely at the heart of everything we do every day.
Yeah, and just to follow on that point just a little bit, given that you made a comment about this, and obviously we're working on these things, but there's how do we get the service launched the right way in the short term, and then how do we architect for the future? That means you're on a data journey that isn't complete yet, right?
That's right.
So how did you guys kind of prioritize what was required and sufficient, and what is the gap between where you are today and where you're headed?
So as you mentioned earlier, we were operating 3 other streaming services. And so as part of building this out, we were migrating audiences from those 3 services into the one, right? So basically, we knew how we were measuring before in those businesses. So they had existing data, plans and models around them. So we weren't starting from scratch. So we knew what things needed to look like. What is the ideal dashboard? What are the KPIs? Right? All those things. We've done the homework and the work on that. So it wasn't a stretch. So we know we needed to have some relative parity to start, right? And you just have to start someplace. And you need your basics. You need your DAU, your MAU on the ad side anyway. You need your watch time, your watch origins, all those things. And also, we're looking closely at video start times and things like that. I know in the last session they were getting into some of that stuff, and we're doing the same. And there's a lot of common tools out there. I know we're working with Conviva to do real-time player analytics, which gives us a lot of insight on a real-time basis.
Awesome. I know we could also spend a whole session on this, but Mauricio, you and I have talked about this as well, and we've kind of looked at a longer-term vision of what data enables. So, can you give a perspective, given how large Globo is and how many millions of consumers in the country rely on Globo, right, as a main source? In fact, one thing that's really interesting is we were at a breakfast recently, and Raimundo Barros, and you and I were talking, and he mentioned the differences, right, between Brazil and the U.S., for example, in terms of the pay TV penetration, where we had free over-the-air television here, got kind of eclipsed dramatically by pay TV or cable in the U.S., which then is now moving into the cord-cutting scenarios and the decline. But in Brazil, actually, the pay TV adoption wasn't as significant, and right now there are so many people that still rely on the over-the-air signal, right? Yeah. And in that environment, how are you working, and how is data, factoring into even servicing those customers?
Yeah, in Brazil, I think that we have an interest case because the free-to-air television in Brazil is huge, and a lot of people sees free-to-air television. As in Brazil, we have less people from Class A, and more people from Class C, D, and then this is why in the moment that pay TV was going to be strong in Brazil, the Class A was already in the pay TV, and then would go down to Class B, then the streaming came.
Yeah? You're talking about when you say class, you're talking about the socioeconomic class.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And then with that, in our case, we have the free-to-air television where we can scale to the mass, and we have the over the top where we can segment. And really for us at Brazil, the idea is to combine these 2 delivers to generate more revenue, And so think about data. Data is very important for this to happen, And really for us in Globo, in our new culture, data, our decisions are going to be based on data, yeah? And we joke in Globo that probably a data set and a data platform maybe in 2-3 years are going to value more than our studios. Yeah,
right.
We have big studios over there because we produce a lot of entertainment, telenovelas and series. But this because really all the data, all the understand that we can have from our customer will deliver better programs, because then we can count better the stories to have more engagement, like you said. And also with that, we can really do segmentation on our delivery of advertising. For example, we are already in Brazil doing a lot of dynamic ad insertion. Yeah. This for us, in the video premium, this is killer. If we can really scale that to have a big inventory, digital inventory, with many connected TVs, with many good programs, is going to be a new revenue that we do not have today. And if we really were able to connect in the same connected TV, the broadband with the broadcast, where we really can have a seamless switch between a segmented content to a mass content, then we also can have more and more revenue. And going to your point, this seamless integration is important, because today we are based on an economy of attention, yeah? Because the content that we provide, everybody sees, engages, and then we sell the advertising, or there is a subscription, and this is how we are paid.
Yes.
But imagine that we can have a content, and then in this content, besides the guy seeing, he can watch, for example, a lady that has a watch, and then we can put this watch, and the lady could buy the watch, and then we deliver directly a transaction economy, and then we go to another whole business, you understand? Right. And this is the digital world, because we see e-commerce doing content, we see finance doing e-commerce, and we can see also media companies working and having also a revenue for transaction economy.
Yeah, no, I think that's very insightful, and it's actually one of the things that I find pretty exciting about what is happening in media, because the way I talk about it is the entire fundamental nature of what constitutes an audience experience is changing, right? I mean, when we say that, people often talk about, oh yes, immersive experiences with AR and VR, and interactive experiences like we talk about voting with Big Brother and polling. But it's also experiences where, the retail products kind of are delivered in a media experience, and the media experience is actually maybe even a commerce environment, and that's just one angle, right? There's gamification, there's all different ways. We only have 24 hours in a day as a consumer, but how do you optimize and then solve, I think, one of the challenges that media companies face today, which is as things become more personalized, more niche, more targeted and digital, we have that divide of the average revenue per user kind of going down, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, of course, data is at the heart of that. Yeah. And of course, data is at the heart of cloud transformation as media companies respond to this paradigm shift. With that, we only have about a minute left or so. Are there any questions from the audience? No burning questions? We've answered it all. With that, before I thank you, gentlemen, and wrap up, Mauricio, you talked about moving from the attention to the transaction economy, and a lot of people that I work with know I quote that all the time now when we talk about the convergence of media and commerce. Michael, can you just mention what Televisa Univision might be thinking about down the lines? Obviously, you have very important tactical things you're trying to accomplish right now, which are massive. But what does the future look like, after 22?
Yeah, you're so right. So we just built this AVOD, like I mentioned, VIX, and it's 40,000 hours of content, and it's movies, shows, it's sporting events, tons of sporting events, a ton of soccer, and 24/7 news. So that's a lot of stuff.
Yes, yeah.
So I think what we look forward to as we look out on the horizon is this notion of being whatever version of that is for you, for the specific individual viewer. We shouldn't rely on old navigational components in an app to make people go spend time clicking around to dig around to find their favorite stuff. If we know you like a specific team and you're an avid soccer fan, we should get you right to that quickly. Obviously, in a Netflix environment, we each have our own in-app homepage experience, right? We know that. But that's just movies and shows. Imagine having to throw sports in the middle, right? And the news. You know, who is my favorite newscaster? I would love to, right? So I think we want to create a world where there's a dynamic and very well-targeted experience. And it's very vibrant and very ever-changing, because I think the older, kind of existing in older paradigms of, you know, app constructs are kind of a thing of the past. Everybody knows them. You have to have them. But how do you make it better? And I have a hunch that you're going to drive all of those KPIs way north if you can create these really dynamic, data-driven, personalized experiences.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to seeing those. I mean, I will. It's not a new topic in the sense that we've all talked about how every streaming service looks the same, right? But I do think in
some ways you don't want them to look too different, because you don't want to confuse people. Right.
Absolutely.
Like, these things, you don't want to really innovate right there squarely necessarily, right?
Right. So you don't want to confuse the user, but how do you make it more engaging?
That's right. That's
so
right.
With that, I know we're out of time. Thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us, and we'll be around for questions that you now will think of after we're off stage. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Anil.
Thank you.